Senator.
This commencement, I believe, is a practical and way to update an existing and very important scheme that is in line with our sustainable and carbon neutral ambition. And it also to be cognizant that there is a huge cost to living with a disability. I want to note at the outset that I've been working with some of our Fianna Fáil Ogre members on this proposal, Brian McGreehan from Kildare North in particular. In light of our green initiatives brought forward by this government, and particular attention to electric cars, disabled persons have not, in my opinion, not been properly accommodated or encouraged by these green policies. In order to provide equity among the most vulnerable in our society, special and extra arrangements should be made to facilitate those mobility issues in the green transition. Therefore, Minister, we ask the expansion of the tax relief and the fuel allowances under the Disabled Drivers and Disabled Passenger Scheme. There are three areas that I'd like for you to look at. As said, I'd like to expand and incentivise disabled drivers and disabled drivers and disabled passengers scheme. Currently, the scheme will cover tax relief in the form of remission of VRT, repayment of VAT on purchase of a vehicle, and a repayment of VAT on the cost of adapting that vehicle. We ask that the Minister would expand the scheme to include vehicles, electric vehicles, hybrid electric vehicles across the three areas of that tax relief, mainly the remission of VRT on electric and hybrid electric vehicles, repayment on VAT on the purchase of electric vehicles, and repayment of VAT on the cost of adapting that electric vehicle. Secondly, to increase the maximum rate of reimbursement in order to incentivise that change to that green transition. So at the minute, we have disabled drivers with a max of 10,000, disabled passengers of a max 16,000. Specially adapted vehicles for drivers with severe disabilities has a cap of 16,000. Extensively adapted vehicles have a cap of 22,000. We ask that the Minister would increase that up to 50% on the above reimbursements to allow for that higher cost of purchase and adaptation of electric vehicles. Thirdly, to look at the fuel allowance. Disabled drivers are qualified under the Disabled Drivers and Disabled Passenger Scheme are given a fuel allowance up to 2,730 litres per annum. We would ask the Minister to consider expanding this tax relief to allowance to include electric charging to the maximum amount, which would possibly reach between 120 and 240 per 100 kilometres. Minister, if you look at the challenges our citizens with disabilities face, one of the glaring, most obvious one of those is mobility and essentially being trapped in their own homes or in their small community. And if we look at the statistics, the statistics back that up. 24% of our people with disabilities do not have access to a car or a van, compared to 12% of the general population. I feel if we could expand the scheme and assist and incentivise to make and empower people to make those environmentally conscious choice, I think it could be a very clear and definitive way to help both a disabled person to adapt their car and have a mode of transport, but also incentivise them to make that green choice that we all want to make. Thank you.
Minister.
I want to thank the Senator McGreehan for raising this matter in the House today, and I'm replying on behalf of the Minister of Public Expenditure and Reform in relation to incentivising the purchase of electric vehicles as a sustainable option under the primary medical certificate. And it's clear, listening to Senator McGreehan, she's done detailed work in relation to her presentation, and she's worked with other people putting that here. And I could say, I think you could have almost written the Minister's script. You're so well informed, and that's a credit to the research and the work you've done on this very important area. So the Disabled Drivers and Disabled Passengers Tax Concession Scheme provides relief from VAT and vehicle registration tax up to certain limits, an exemption from motor tax, and a grant in respect of fuel on the purchase of an adapted car for transport of a person with specific severe and permanent physical disabilities. To qualify for the scheme, an applicant must be in the possession of a primary medical certificate, and we all understand that. To qualify for a primary medical certificate, an applicant must be permanently or severely disabled to satisfy one of the following conditions which is set out in the Finance Act 1989. To be wholly or almost wholly without legs or use of both legs, to be wholly without the use of one leg and almost wholly without the use of the other leg, such as legs, such that the applicant is severely restricted in the movement of the lower limbs, be without both hands or without both arms, or be without both legs, or be wholly or almost wholly without the use of both hands or legs, or wholly without the use of one leg, have a medical condition of dwarfism, and have serious difficulties of movements to lower limb. So you can hear that's very narrow, very specific, and as everybody will know, the whole issue in relation to the primary medical certificate resulting from recent court case decisions is under review, and a working group is currently working on that to update the actual conditions and to make sure the legislation is conditioned, or the scheme is consistent with the actual legislation. The scheme represents a significant tax expenditure between the vehicle registration tax and VAT forgone and the fuel grant. The scheme costs have risen from 50 million in 2015 to 67 million in 2020. The figure does not include the revenue forgone in respect of motor tax, which is paid directly by the people concerned. The drivers and passengers with disability scheme provides for the remission of repayment of vehicle registration tax up to a limit of certain amounts. The Finance Act 1992 further provides that a Category A series production vehicle can avail of relief up to 5,000 on the VRT rule. Under the drivers and disabled passengers and disability scheme, there is no differentiation between electric and other vehicles in terms of the VRT VAT refund. The amount of the VRT due or paid on a vehicle is remitted or repaid up to a maximum relief applicable €10,000 for VRT VAT relief in most cases. As there is a separate VRT relief for electric vehicles provided for in section 135C(3)(b) of the Finance Act 1992, the amount of VRT due or paid on an electric vehicle may be lower than the maximum relief permitted. In such case, the VRT relief will equate to the actual VRT paid. The VAT element of the refund is given regardless of whether it's an electric vehicle. So there is no distinction there in relation to the category of the vehicle. Members of the scheme may claim repayment of a fuel grant based on the litre rate of 0.619 for petrol, or 0.515 per litre of diesel, or 0.118 for liquefied petroleum gas. Outside of the disabled drivers and passenger scheme, full battery electric vehicles can currently avail of the VRT relief of €5,000. Since 2008, the VRT has been calculated according to vehicles' CO2 emissions. Budget 2021 introduced a new VRT charging rate for low emission vehicles. So as my time is up, I'll just provide a little bit of further information on the second round.
Thank you very much indeed. Senator, you have 1 minute
My
to
God,
respond.
Minister, and thank you very much. Yeah, and as you mentioned, the primary medical certificate, you know, it is certainly not perfect, and I look forward to that review, because even the descriptions there that you read out are incredibly crass, and that there is one side that we do have to look at. As regards you mentioned in your response there that that there is a significant tax expenditure on this. I think it's money very well spent, Minister, and it will do no harm to spend for the state to spend more. We refuse to publish the Indican report on the cost of disabilities in this country, and I think there is a huge cost, and any way to incentivise and to alleviate the costs on people with disabilities, I think this is one way of doing it, and it could be to increase those bans, as I mentioned, would be very, very good. It's very good to hear that there is no differentiation between electric and other vehicles in the scheme, and I hope that is clear for everyone, and I'm glad we have that clarity today. But again, the cost of electric vehicles are very, very expensive. So I will take up with this again at a later date, Minister. Thank you very, very much for your coming here this morning.
And thank you, Senator, for the second contribution. And as I was just about to say, Budget 2021 introduced a new VRT charging table which reduces the rate for low-emission vehicles. BEVs now have zero tailpipe emissions and are therefore not subject to NOx surcharge. This, coupled with the relief, means that many electric vehicles end up paying no VRT at all. This complements a broad range of support for battery electric vehicles, which includes no taxable benefit in kind up to €50,000 to SEAI purchase grant home charger installation and grant and reducing tolls, etc. So there are a number of provisions there to help electric vehicles, which are available to everybody, including people under this scheme. And in the context of incentivising the purchase of electric vehicles, there are a number of incentives already in the scheme which are completely available to obviously everybody who's part of this scheme as well. So I want to acknowledge the importance of the disabled drivers and passenger scheme and the relief, and I hope it provides to those schemes. And finally, I hope we have a review in relation to the medical certificate as quickly as possible in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Senator.